welcome back to the Call Me By Your Game podcast. I am your host, Connor McCabe. This is the show where I bring on people to hear from them about a meaningful or memorable game from a particular moment in their life. Today, we embark on yet another co-op edition of the show, a different version where instead of sitting down with someone to have an intimate, just really cozy and warm conversation about a game from at some point in their life, I sit down with a group of people as we discuss a game in more of an overview format. So it's a little more focused on the game itself rather than the context of our lives, but I'm sure we'll get into that too. Today, we find ourselves on co-op episode 44. This is a monthly format I do here, and I've been doing for almost 4 years at Super NPC Radio. And today, we are going to be continuing my theme for the year for this series, which is sequels. And that's up to my interpretation, folks. So we're getting some pretty clear sequels. We already have an episode on Alan Wake 2 that came out in January. And we have Half-Life 2 coming next month for the month of March. But today, we're going to be discussing a game that I think you could make a pretty great argument that this is not exactly a sequel, and that is Final Fantasy VII Remake INTERmission, the DLC where you play as Yuffie Kisaragi. Anyway, I'm really excited to get into it. If you want to learn more about the show or follow any links that myself or my guests plug today, if you want to find us on YouTube, check us out on Patreon. If you are watching on YouTube, there's going to be links in the show notes to all that stuff. Our social media is there. We're even on TikTok now. And guys, I gotta say, our clips, they're chuggy, they're fire. What do kids say? What's like a thing like a word that kids would use to describe something fire, but that's a little less outdated? And I'm asking my two guests at this point.
And we have a collective age of what, 115 at this point?
Well, I think the three of us would get us over the 100-year mark at that point.
We're definitely, the three of us make a century for sure.
Yeah, so probably the worst panel to ask, but let's just say our TikTok is pretty silly, guys. That'll do it for the housekeeping, and I'll introduce my two guests who are going to be, embarking on this episode with me. A couple of returning champions. First and foremost, someone who I did a little double check, and yeah, somehow just the one co-op episode, but has been featured on a lot of podcasts on the network, including a recent Final Fantasy VII episode. Please welcome to the microphone, Mr. David Donnella. Welcome back.
Chugi.
Okay,
What's up,
yeah. And I think it's Yuffie says that a bunch in this game. It really caught me off guard.
She's a kid. She's the Gen Z of Final Fantasy VII.
I do expect...
Or Gen A? Is she Gen Alpha?
That's a good question. I do expect to spend at least half the time discussing Yuffie's age and, clarifying that for so many reasons. Like why someone's pants are like that. And just a lot of questions. So we'll figure it out. Maybe she's a teen, maybe she's not. Who knows? But David, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, if I didn't already say it, yeah, I did say it. Your lone episode on the series was the Skyrim episode, which is 3 years ago at this point. Kind of nuts. But I'm so pumped to have you here. We're joined by.
Was that the 10-year anniversary of Skyrim that we did that?
You know, I don't think I did it intentionally, but it was a little before that exact 10-year mark hit. I think we did it in like February or March of 2021, and that would have been late that year, 10 years.
And it's been 3 years, and there's still no word on a new Elder Scrolls coming out.
No, that'll be it. We'll hear about it in another 4 years, and then it'll come out 3 years after that. David, glad to have you here. We're also joined by another returning champion from also just a single co-op episode under his belt, the It Takes Two episode. PJ McCormick, welcome back.
Hey, happy to be here and put the mid in Midgar.
Oh.
What's up, y'all?
Okay. No, it doesn't get any better than that, folks. If you like what you've heard, please turn off the podcast because it's all downhill after that. PJ, That is so funny. I gotta hand it to you. Welcome back, pal.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me back. I've been playing a lot of games, but I haven't been talking about them to anyone. Just been playing in my little shame hole by myself, and I'm ready to come out of my shell.
I love it. Well, this episode is coming out, and we're recording it at a very exciting time where, by the time this episode launches on Tuesday, I believe that will be February 27th. We'll be 2 days away from the next installment in the Final Fantasy VII Remake series with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So, PJ, I feel like this is like, I know you're the kind of person who goes through waves of playing games where you're like, you can binge sometimes or you can like not play for a little bit, but it's Final Fantasy VII time, pal. So no wonder that you're, out of your little hole.
Oh, absolutely. I've been hyping myself up for like months now. I'm exclusively listening to the Final Fantasy VII and Remake soundtracks in my car on my way to destinations. I show up either hyped or somber when when I get there. And just been watching so many like reaction videos of like Easy Allies, Maximilian Dude, just people who I know love the series.
Yes.
I want to experience it with people who also like, it meant so much to them as well as it did for me. So yeah, I'm beyond hyped. I'm so excited. We've got a crazy time coming up in our little comedy community with like auditions and Herald and all that stuff. And I don't give a shit about that because I'm going to be playing as Kate Sith and Red 13. So,
yeah. Well, I always associate you with this game because when the original first installment in the remake series came out, you, myself, Jeremy, and Mikey Stevens did like a 2-parter, like 4 months apart, where we talked about our initial impressions of that game. Again, and this was like weeks into, like maybe a month into lockdown. So we were also going like a bit stir crazy. It was very, very like specific time.
Well, hadn't you not played the game at that point?
The original?
Yeah.
I had not beaten it, and I still haven't actually beaten the original. I
just remember like having to talk someone into it. Was that you? Where it was like, let me tell you the significance of this game.
I think there were probably, like there may be today, especially around like some of the specific details of like Wu Tai and whatnot. There might be things that like I still am not privy to in the original game, despite having started it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think about you when I think of this game. And our other guest, Mr. Donnella, I think about you when I think of Final Fantasy, but I think about you with Final Fantasy VIII, the game you brought on my podcast many moons ago.
Yeah, I mean, that is... I thought I would have more professional stature at this point. And I don't. And that's on... There's nobody to blame but myself for that. But my plan was always to... as I gained prominence in my career, get known as the guy who cares a lot about Final Fantasy VIII. Because one day, somebody's going to ask me for my takes on not even how to fix it, but should we do a sequel? Answer yes. Here's what we should do the sequel about. Here's how we can fix the junction system to make it interesting. I have all of those thoughts. And so it's important. I mean, aside from the fact that I love the game, it's important for me to make it known that I'm the Final Fantasy VIII guy. That said, I spent equal amount of time with Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And if somebody put a gun to me and made me be honest, it's a better game.
Yeah.
all elements like combined and when execution matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, also, like, just character-wise, like, when you go from the silhouettes of Final Fantasy VII characters and how different they all are from each other to the silhouettes of Final Fantasy VIII, everyone's just, like, a skinny, pretty person. it's hard to get as invested when you just came from this like legit fantasy world, and now it's trying to be like realistic. It was really challenging for me. I played and beat the game.
Yeah,
I played and beat 8, but
they
was not that invested.
They really understood how to maximize the PlayStation's capabilities at that point. And this is one of those things that happens where it's like they give you something that is this great technological achievement that actually adds nothing to the game and is not worth the compromises made, which is they were like, oh, we can have all of your party members running behind you. and it's like, oh, okay, great. So what I'm seeing is my main character followed by the 2 people I chose. They are all the same height. They're all the same general proportions. And they all are just in this line, kind of like exactly following the path of the first one. That adds to the verisimilitude. That's great.
You know what? If my RPG characters don't have little balls for hands like Cloud here, then I don't want to play the game, folks. I do remember seeing, like, I've never started 8 in my life, but I do remember being at a very specific memory of someone I went to junior high with. He had a birthday party where it was just like one of those birthday parties where you go to somebody's house and they have activities and there's stuff going on. It sounds like I've never been to a birthday.
Yeah, one of those birthday parties.
Connor, have you been to a birthday? But I remember being at this kid's house. His first name was Philip. We were never like good friends, but we were friendly from school. He had a PlayStation hooked up, the original. And even though the PS2 is out at this time, I was just like, because it was a console I never had as a kid and barely saw, I was just like so fascinated by the games he had. And I knew Final Fantasy because of 4 and 6. But I think I asked him to put 8 in, and he put 8 in, and I was like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. They're so tall and skinny. It's almost like a CW show.
Oh yeah.
As like a video game in some ways.
That's what I said when I first saw One Tree Hill.
Yeah,
it's like Final Fantasy VIII.
Tall and skinny.
Is that Squall? David, I don't give up on your dream to become, that sort of person with gravitas known for Final Fantasy VIII. It reminds me of like, how like certain celebrities are known for like, oh, like Hassan Minaj is a Sacramento Kings fan and that's sort of cool. Or Jason Sudeikis, he went to KU, so he's a big Kansas Jayhawks fan. That could be us for certain video games.
Oh, you just named 2 celebrities I cannot stand. I don't know how you did that. I can't stand either of them.
I bet Minaj I could guess reasons, but Sudeikis I bet it's like because he plays a character that's like too sincere.
And he's not.
See, there's PJ.
He's playing against type.
Hey,
I
can't speak to Sudeikis' sincerity. I'll tell you that.
All I can say is I went to Letterman's show on mushrooms one time, had a very heightened sense of awareness, and I could just feel how insulted Jason Sudeikis was when he came out and told Dave, so I heard that you told my wife that she's married to some dummy. So while I'm here, let's talk about that dummy. Like, get over yourself, dude. Shut the fuck up.
PJ, we need to do a whole podcast where it's just like your like strange anecdotes from like moments you've like witnessed like this, because I'm sure there's so many.
Yeah. The worst part was Dave Letterman was like, he said, you need to be dating a smarty pants like Harry Styles.
And she's like, who at the time? Yeah. Well, Sudeikis, if you're listening, you have an open invite. I know, guys, Sudeikis is always listening to the pod, so I hope he knows. Rock Chalk, you have an open invite to be here. But
yeah, come on pod. It's funny because I think of that as like, when you started to say Jason, I was like, oh, he's going to talk about Jason Segel, who like just made himself really publicly known as a Muppets fan, and then I think got to like write a couple Muppets movies, and like that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, you know who's openly a Final Fantasy VII fan?
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson.
Folks, Anybody I could get to tell this to, I have to, because it doesn't come up often enough. I saw Robert Pattinson at Black Cat a few weeks ago. Went to
doxing him.
Just doxing him. He'll never go again. But I went to meet up with Amanda and her siblings and some friends for some drinks. I'm a little late, as I am. Sit down because they're eating dinner. I'm not. Sit down in a booth, and I swear we're going to talk about VII Remake intermission at some point. But I sit down in a booth, and the game's an hour and a half long. We can do this. And then as soon as I sit down, Amanda's sister Caitlin leans over to me and she goes, "Don't look now, but Robert Pattinson is in the opposite booth from us." And eventually I look over and I spot him. And truly the only thing I had in my head was, he's probably also excited for Remake Part 2. and I did end up explaining to the table what Final Fantasy VII Remake was, because they said, "Remake? What's that?" Anyway, Robert Pattinson also open invite. Any celebrity we bring up today, I'm just going to act as if they're watching the show and let them know they have an open invite. But anyway, we'll get into the podcast a little bit here. Before we, dive into what the game is that we're discussing today, I'd like to do a little preamble by discussing each of our histories with Final Fantasy VII itself, but also anything we have to share about Remake Part 1, because that obviously is where this game jumps off from. You two, though, recently have been on Video Games, a Comedy Show, sharing your experience with the original 7, so I want to do a little truncated version of this. PJ, would you mind walking us through a little bit of your 7 history, plus anything you want to share about getting into Remake and your experience there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first got into Final Fantasy VII when I saw the Greatest Hits green sleeve in the bargain bin section of I think it was called Funko Land back in the day.
Land.
Oh yeah, that turned. Did Funko Land turn into
EB Games,
and then which in turn turned into GameStop?
Exactly. Yeah. There's a definite lineage there.
Pokemon Evolution.
Grandfather Funko Land. And yeah, my mom was like, $20. Sure, I guess I'll buy that for you. And man, I played that game over and over and over and over again, to the point where like I was doodling characters. Like I would just like, when I'm bored, I would just draw the characters when I wasn't playing the game. And then when I was playing the game, I was just sitting there in the living room, completely invested in this story, playing it over and over and over again. Like it was a novel I was reading, you know? That was like my first video game epic novel. And then Metal Gear Solid was like my action movie, you know?
Yeah.
And I would just play those two over and over and over again. And yeah, like when Remake came out, I remember sitting there at the start game screen.
Yes.
Nervous. I was like a little terrified that they're going to ruin my childhood right now. And then I played it, and they actually not only lived up to my expectations, but surpassed them. What they presented was greater than anything I could have held in my imagination. And so I am so fucking on board with whatever they do in Rebirth. They are the masters of it. It's the original people who made the game. I salute them for just making this a reality. I've grown up wondering, what would this game look like in high definition, and now we get to see it, and it's amazing.
Yeah. I'm quite excited. Have you played the Rebirth demo, either part, at this point?
I have, yeah. I played both of them. I kind of just like speed ran through them because I don't want to get too into it. I still want it to feel fresh when I play. But I kind of like got to feel out the mechanics, got to like try out Red 13 a little bit.
Yeah.
Plays like a tank. He's amazing. But I didn't want to explore too much. I didn't even like go into the chocobo farm. I was just like, I'm just gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave that for later.
Cool. Are you picking this up day one? Are you getting a digital copy? Like, what's going on with PJ on February 29th?
So when Remake came out, we were in the pandemic, and I was like very adamant about not going out. So I did download it, and I regretted downloading it digitally because I didn't get to like have the game box.
I know. I
up.
wish I had it displayed right here, and I also have it digitally.
Well, I went and I bought the steel book cover from someone selling just the case on eBay. So I bought that for like $15 just so I could have it. And the funny thing is, I don't even display my games. Yeah. They sit in a cupboard, like in a little cabinet.
In the whole shame thing that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, this is my deep, dark secret for anyone wondering. So, I feel like with this, I'm probably just going to go ahead and just buy the disc. Mm-hmm. But it is convenient having it digitally because I do play it a lot. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
For you, it's like your Animal Crossing or your Mario Kart, where most people they have it digitally so they don't have to swap it out. But for you, it's Remake and Rebirth.
Yeah, I think that disc is just going to always be in the PlayStation. I have no other games to play, so... Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm sure we're going to hear more about your history with the series, but thank you, PJ, for getting us into it. David, let's turn to you, pal. A little truncated version of your history with 7 and any part of the series.
Yeah. So my history is that I basically saw a couple of my cousins playing the game and was like spellbound. And
they cast Stop on you.
They cast Stopped. They cast Mesmerize, and I was spellbound, and so it became my fixation was getting Final Fantasy VII. So this is like I feel like this is it's not unique at all, but it's a unique quality that parents have, which is asked for it for my birthday. For PC, because we didn't have any consoles.
Yes.
And frankly didn't have a computer that could even handle the game anyway. But we had a computer, so theoretically I could play it on a computer. But asked for it for my birthday. My mom goes to the store and says, "I'm looking for Final Fantasy VII." Guy at the store says, "Well, we have Final Fantasy VII and we have Final Fantasy VIII." And she said, "Oh, well, if there's a newer one, I'll take that." And so my obsession with Final Fantasy VIII comes from asking for Final Fantasy VII, getting Final Fantasy VIII, which was actually harder to play on the computer, had higher specifications, but loved, played VIII, was like, "Oh, this is incredible," and then later on finally got 7 for computer and then played that. So have played it multiple times in the intervening years. Basically, whenever it comes out on a new platform, I go, "Oh, okay, let me play it real quick." And Remake, I think, is to say something more. I mean, I played Crisis Core, also never played Dirge of Cerberus because it wasn't an RPG enough for me. Mm-hmm. But to just like expand on something PJ said, like I think Remake, what it did also was Square has a history of kind of making like half-assed remasters that you're like, what is this? This did the great thing of just like giving you just enough, like giving you the old thing, but also giving you something that was new and exciting and made you expanded the lore in ways that I think were rewarding. So I'm just over the moon. And I last week, I don't know how pre-orders work, but last week I Best Buy restocked on like the Steelbook edition for Rebirth, so I have that coming in the mail. So I might not even be a day one player because
you could
I
be
sure
like
didn't
March
spring
1st.
for expedited shipping.
Oh, wow. That's great, though. Gosh, what you said something. Oh, talking about, like, the half-assed remasters or what they did with Remake. It's interesting because in Remake, there's things that are just one-to-one, but with, obviously this new coat of paint of, like, fleshing this out in a fully realized, like, 4K, like, 3D third-person action perspective. And then there's things like you were saying where they flesh out the world and they give us way more than we asked for in certain ways. Most of which I really enjoy, and I'm along for the ride on all of it. Some of it I'm less enthusiastic about, but most of it I'm like, hell yeah. Especially being someone who, because I've never finished 7, I am very familiar with the Midgar section. Like,
Yeah.
I'll get into my history with this series as well, but this is a game that I don't even remember the first time I saw it, because this kid, the Philip kid I was telling you about at his birthday, he probably had 7 as well. Like, I think him and his brothers had like 7, 8, and 9. Those 4-disc jewel cases, or I guess 7 was 3 discs.
Beautiful.
But I just love.
It could have held 4.
Yeah, just throw a blank disc in there for me. Why don't you? But I don't even remember really hearing about it as a young kid. The first time I remember playing it, having played 4 a bunch over at a friend's house and emulated Final Fantasy VI a decent amount at this point. One of my best friends and my best friend growing up, Eddie Martin, who's been featured on a lot of podcasts on our network.
Shout out, Eddie.
Shout out, Eddie. Have you guys got to be on a show together before, David? Or are you just like, I know the name because you've heard it?
I've heard the name.
He's also in the Discord, too, as Hophead Ed, so you've probably seen that as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, shout out Hophead.
Especially us, just me and him, the only people talking in our sports channel. But anyway, Eddie was an early adopter of the PlayStation 3. I think his brother had bought 10 at launch and tried to resell them and lost a ton of money because no one wanted to buy the original PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
But Eddie, I think out of pity, bought one of these things. And he had some PlayStation 3 games, but a game he also got was the PlayStation 1 version of Final Fantasy VII. And there's one summer specifically, I could do a Call Me By Your Game episode on this because I know exactly where I was playing it. It was the summer going into my senior year of high school. Eddie was bored with his PlayStation 3. He let me borrow it with Final Fantasy VII. And all I remember doing that summer is playing Final Fantasy VII on a PlayStation 3 and playing in summer baseball tournaments in high school. And just that's all I did, would drive my little car to tournament games, come back, and then play Final Fantasy VII. It was great. I can't say how far I got, though, back then, but it's been one that I've revisited over the years. In fact, when it came out on the Nintendo Switch, right before Remake came out, that January, I bought it and I played the farthest I've ever gotten, which is apparently exactly where Rebirth is going to end, at the Temple of the Ancients, allegedly. I think they've kind of specifically said that's where it's going to end. PJ, do you have any, is that feel accurate to what you've heard, or is...
Yeah,
am I just
it goes all the way up to the end of Disc 1, and I literally just played that last night. That ends right after Aerith's scene.
Wow. So that's where I got my playthrough, and even though I knew it was coming, folks, it still hit so hard, partly because I had so much good materia on her, so you do feel that loss in your party. I'm like, oh, there goes my fully maxed out healing materia and ice or whatever. But also because when it happened, I didn't realize I was past the point of no return yet. And so I thought I was going to get one more chance to not talk to her, but to interact with the character and maybe get my equipment off. So that's as far as I've ever played. But yeah, when Remake came out, PJ and I did 2 podcasts on it. I was like, I already seemed to have nostalgia for a game that I didn't really play the way that a lot of you did growing up.
Can I just say the story you just told about the summer playing Final Fantasy VII? It literally just sounds like Call Me by Your Name, but instead of Army Hammer, it's a used PlayStation 3.
Yeah, just me and a used PS3 riding bikes through Italy. What's that peach for? It's a peach, right? It's not an apple. It's a peach.
It's a peach.
Yeah, it's a peach. That's how you broke the PlayStation.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm definitely the Chalamet in this situation.
Always,
of course. But were you gonna say something else, Peach?
No, but I was gonna ask, like,
Yes.
do you lose your materia when you lose Aerith? Is that part of it? I thought
It's not. Oh, I thought it was. I mean, I could totally be
because she
wrong.
voluntarily leaves. She's like, I got to go find him myself. And then you have that little thing in the forest where you can't chase her, because you black out. And I think she leaves behind all of her materia with you.
Okay, maybe I'm making that up then.
But there is a moment of panic for sure, because I don't think they say anything about it.
Oh,
so
and there is a moment where, like, your materia does get stolen in the game.
yes,
famously.
Speaking of our episode topic, so
can I ask a question real quick before
please.
we just while we're still on the nostalgia of Final? What was everybody's party? I mean, I guess Connor, I guess you were far enough that you had access to everybody. I'm curious, like, what were people's like general final parties, if they had a final party?
Did you have like a final party, PJ?
Yeah, Tifa, Barrett. That was my party, because I was like, well, these are the 2 that, like, I started with, and just Barrett was so cool to me. He's a literal tank, you know. And then Tifa had a little crush on her.
Sure.
So I'm gonna keep my girlfriend with me. And then, like, once I got to the final battle, I was like, oh crap. Like the other teams was so weak. I didn't play with them at all.
Yeah.
What about you, David?
I guess I try to vary it every time, but so I think the first time I played it, I think it was Tifa Red 13, because my sister loved Red 13.
Aw.
But definitely, like, I think my most recent playthrough was Yuffie and Sid.
Very nice.
Because I was like, nobody ever. It was actually the first time I'd ever used Sid for like anything more than the, wherever he's required.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I don't know who my canon team is at this point, because I also spent a lot of time playing, running a Barrett team. It was like, I think it was Cloud, Barrett, and it would either be Tifa or Yuffie.
Yeah. Interesting. I think the team, at least on that playthrough, which again is my most thorough one, despite having done the Midgar section like 5 times before, I remember writing with Red 13 for sure. I just really liked the way he looked. He's like an orange-red cat, so he's just so distinct looking, and I also liked going with Barrett. But on that playthrough, I did get Vincent as well, and I want to say... and Yuffie. So I had everybody, but I think I was, Red 13 and Barrett.
Yeah. Also, I apologize if I call her Yuffie at any point. I spent 15 years just reading this name before I ever heard it said out loud.
Yes.
And so there's a part of, I have a freeze reaction when I start to say Yuffie, and I'm like, am I doing it right?
You know what? You speak your truth. And if you short circuit, we'll be here to pick up the pieces. To wrap up my history with the series, adored Remake, pretty much just like devoured it when it came out. And since then, I actually recently finished a few games that I had for other podcasts, and I've been playing through Remake and 7 like simultaneously. So as I like progress in Remake, I continue in the original one on my Switch. And which is funny because I'm mostly playing Remake because obviously that section in the original game is so much smaller. Like it took me maybe 2 hours to like meet up with Aerith and like fall through the church in the original 7, where in Remake it's like 8 hours, 9 hours into the game or so. So
It's crazy.
I'm currently doing that and I just can't get enough. And I'm really excited for Rebirth. I haven't bought it yet, partly because I've been looking for work for a while and I've been trying to save money, but there's a high chance that I cave this week and like go to Best Buy on Thursday. So we'll see.
Well, I'll have the physical copy, so you can borrow from me, man.
Oh my gosh, look at this.
Remember that? Remember those days, boys.
Oh gosh. You're my one-winged angel, David, just saving me.
After David sinks 100 hours into it, you can borrow it.
Yeah,
You can have it summer of 2026.
I was going to say, I'll swing by in August. Well, anyway, folks, that's like our history with the series. I'm going to talk a little bit about, just briefly, like set the table for what Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission DLC is. We can call it whatever we want to. I might refer to it as the Yuffie DLC, just to make that sentence a little shorter from here on out. But this was downloadable content released for VII Remake that came out in 2021 that was, I forgot about this, but exclusive to the PlayStation 5 version. PJ, you had a PS5 when this came out. David, did you have a PS5 when this came out?
No, I played this on PC.
Oh, interesting.
And I now have it on PS5.
Okay, very cool. This is a game that, like, when it dropped, I immediately spent the $20 and was like, hell yeah. And PJ, I'm pretty sure you played through it, like, as soon as it came out.
Yeah, I played it immediately because, like, I had a PS5 and there was nothing to play.
Yeah.
So, like, that was, like, my first, like, PS5 kind of game, but it was still using, like, PS4 engine. But yeah, I jumped on it quickly.
Yeah, you were singing its praises so much to me that I bought it, started it, and was like, this is going to be really fun. And then just until, like, 3 weeks ago, never came back to it. And the game follows Yuffie, who we've been referring to, one of the, actually, technically an optional character in the original 7, but I think someone you do interact with regardless. This is a side story that takes place during a middle chapter of VII Remake, where you're acting as Yuffie, basically exploring Midgar, going on adventures, meeting another sect of Avalanche, and just basically seeing something that you don't see in Remake, which, unlike a lot of what's in Remake, this isn't a totally original story. This is not in 7 at all. So there's that. Brand new story. Let me go ahead and just take a little poke right here. Oh yeah, Yuffie's whole mission too, when she shows up, is she has heard of this like ultimate sort of hidden materia that is in Midgar that I think she already knows Shinra is working on. She's so materia hungry, which is like, I think pays great homage to the original character, which, like, I forget who said it, which of you, but like when you meet her in the original game, she steals your freaking materia. So it's just absolutely brutal. This game is also, as we've been talking about, very short. I was saying earlier, I think How Long to Beat has it at like 5 hours if you do 100% of the tasks. I bet you could beat this in an hour or so, though. Maybe minus cutscenes. But yeah, it came out on June 10th, 2021. It's very, very similar to the gameplay of Remake, where it's the action RPG gameplay system where in battles you are building up your ATB meter by doing basic maneuvers like attacking and defending. And then you'll select commands from there, whether it's special abilities, items, magic. And then when playing with a partner in this game, unlike VII Remake and Rebirth where you can just move to that character and play as them fully, you're basically giving commands to your partner Sonon, who we'll talk about a bunch.
Yeah.
But yeah, but not really. Oh, and one thing they do introduce, we can talk about everything in the game too. Just getting some bullet points out here. One thing that they do introduce are the synergized attacks. Do you two remember this? Yeah,
Yep.
something that's not in Remake that apparently is going to be built on in Rebirth.
Very excited for it.
Yeah. As far as this game goes, when it comes to table setting, before we like really dive into this, do either of you have anything you want to share about it, or anything you think is important to lay out before we do that?
Just that I think that I guess this is in table setting, but just that I think that the way they realized Yuffie's play style, I think, again, just like it's one of those things that just makes me feel very confident in everything they're doing, because it just from the style to the physicality, it just all feels right.
Yeah. Yeah, another like really impressive execution on a character that's not only, I think, fun and unique aesthetically, but like in battle, it's not like she is unique in battle, and she doesn't feel like Aerith, but she does have sort of like, she has close-up and ranged maneuvers that she can do, which is really fun and interesting. PJ, anything you wanted to add on to like the beginning of this discussion or table setting that we should hit on?
Yeah, I mean, like, if we're talking about gameplay and the battle system, it really feels like they were trying to address some of the issues that people had for Remake, which is aerial combat. That was a huge one, and they made sure to give Yuffie aerial abilities. You could throw her, what do you call it, a shuriken?
I think so.
Sure.
She could throw that, yeah. She could throw that, and it'll like stay in place and just like keep hitting them while you use your elemental abilities, and that was such an interesting choice for them to give her elemental abilities. You basically use an ATB bar just to change her element, so that you could basically take on any type of monster without having to rely on a materia slot. Which, interestingly enough, I believe in Rebirth, they have elemental materia that is like, you can have like both fire and ice in one materia slot.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So like, if you wanted to attach like a materia, like elemental, to your sword, you'll have both fire and ice element. So you can take on a myriad of different enemies. So it seems like Rebirth is expanding upon Yuffie's choices as well. And then like when it comes to Sonon,
I think either
yeah,
I think it's pronounced Yuffie.
Basically Yuffie. Yeah, that's it. Yuffie's partner Yuffie. He's just like a souped up Red 13 from Remake, right? You can do those synergy commands, but like for the most part, he's just kind of battling on his own. And that we're going to experience that, I think, when Vincent and Sid come into play in Rebirth. I think they're either going to, maybe we have like a mission or two with them where they join the party, but they're just going to be like a side Sonon character, maybe more advanced than what Red 13 was like. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can still do synergy attacks with them, but you can't control them. Or they're going to be off to the side, just like on the demo, where like if Barrett's not in your 3-person party, he's just like firing off shots from the side. And I could see Vincent maybe like shooting his gun every now and then.
Sid
in the
cussing.
battle. Sid's just, demeaning the women. Screaming at all the women to make tea.
Throwing cigarettes around. Although it will be cool to see if Sid just you just see Sid landing on his spear every now and then, just like he jumps at the beginning of the battle and then like a minute later.
Yeah. It's like, what were you doing that whole time?
So yeah, the battle system was interesting. It's definitely really hard to pick up and play because I tried replaying Intermission recently, and it was really challenging for me. I don't know why. I think it's because if you haven't played the game in so long, Yuffie is so versatile that like it's almost like unbounded potential.
Yeah.
And it kind of got overwhelming.
I feel like they're gonna have to nerf her for the.
I think so. Yeah, they must. But she's gonna be the most versatile character, I think, in Rebirth.
Yeah, she has so many ways that you can go about using her. Like you were talking about, PJ. If you throw her weapon, her shuriken, like you can just keep attacking from a distance, I think, by pressing square. So like the shuriken will keep like spinning around a character, doing elemental attacks. Or if you're at that point, like I want to get up close, / make like a really heavy strike, which I think is like a lot more stronger than just hitting square. If you press triangle, she like goes to where whatever enemy that's attacking, which was really cool. Yeah, like you said, there's like it's almost at least compared to the 4 characters that we used in Remake, Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, and Aerith. She just had more to do, so. Yeah, there was like an interesting thing for me too, getting back into playing this style of game, because I hadn't played Remake since 2020, and so it took a little bit of sort of like getting those training wheels on, but not too long into it, I felt comfortable again, especially like. Once you get Sonon in your party, it's just so nice to have a second character to give commands to. Like, I always feel so naked when I'm one character in one of these games at the beginning because you only have so much you can do. You're learning the systems. You don't know what's weak against what. But I really enjoyed it, and like the battle system again, and like kind of like I love like so much about the Remake series, but like. Gosh, I love the battle system. It's probably my favorite aspect of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it never gets old.
No. So it'll be fun to see how they build on it in this one. When it comes to the story, and this can get us into other stuff as well, like I said earlier, Shinra, Yuffie shows up at the beginning of this game in search of this ultimate materia. So she's like entering Midgar, and I believe she has... contacts in like a sect of Avalanche as well that she is meeting up with. Yuffie coming from the nation of Wutai, who I believe has like been in PJ, you're sort of the lore master here. Wutai and Midgar have like had like war struggles, haven't they?
Yeah, I believe so.
Or Wutai and Shinra.
Yeah.
I said Midgar, yeah.
Yeah, like Shinra's always like fighting them, and then there's also like Deep Ground that's also part of it. But I think Deep Ground and Wutai, help me out if I'm mistaken here, but Deep Ground and Wutai are fighting Shinra.
That might be what it is. Yeah,
those are like 2 armies that are also that. I don't think they're together, but I think that they both have
like a common
Shinra
enemy
as a target. Yes.
Yeah. David, I don't know if you have anything anything to enlighten us with there.
No, just that. I mean, because I can't remember anything from this game except like the broad strokes, but like the Wutai conflict, it's already ongoing in Crisis Core, but that kind of. Shed some light on the backstory that Yuffie is coming from.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That makes a little more sense. Yeah. Especially with the Wutai stuff that I've like interacted with one time in 7, it was a little fuzzy for me. But at least in this game, they make it pretty clear that Yuffie is from this place called Wutai, that she doesn't like people from Midgar. But she is going there to meet up with this sect of Avalanche to help her get this ultimate materia. They have like because they have this common enemy.
And it's actually the legitimate sect of Avalanche, right? It turns out in this version of Final Fantasy, Barrett has like started this like rogue terrorist organization, while the other one just does a little corporate espionage or whatever.
Yeah, they've got people in this version of Avalanche called Billy Bob, which is one of the few characters you meet up with. As far as the story goes overall, because we don't have to go through it bullet point by bullet point, I thought it was like okay. I think it was probably my like one of the weaker parts of this game to me. I don't think it's bad by any means, but Yuffie's motivation of finding, just like looking for this ultimate materia, being a materia hunter, it rang like just a tad hollow for me. I do really like her relationship with Sonon. Sonon to me feels like Cloud if Cloud wasn't a dick. If Cloud if Cloud led with love, really, in this relationship. And the way that they tie those two together as well, because Sonon has like a damaged past as well, where like his sister, it's very Joel and Ellie, by the way. Like these moments where Sonon's sister has been killed in the past, and he has this guilt over not saving her. And so he sort of looks at Yuffie as like the surrogate for like his like sibling love for his sister who's gone now. Do you two remember anything about this? Because they kind of throw it in mostly at the end, where they really give it to you.
Well, I mean, speaking of like him being kind of if Cloud led with love, I feel like there's this thing that we're all attuned to. And one of the examples I'll give is for those of you who saw the most recent Avatar movie, there's Sully has two sons in it. And it's just like, there's just this thing that certain characters have where you're just like, oh, I will be shocked if they live through the end of this.
Yes,
because it's like he's cool, he's nice, he's got like he fights with a bow staff. It's like all this cool shit. He's a good dude. He's got this pained backstory, and it's also like, do they really want to integrate another character? And so you're just like, this guy has no chance of making it out of this alive.
Totally.
Well, we don't see him die though. I could see him as like a little side boss, because he gets taken over by whatever energy Nero has. Yeah. So I feel like he'll be back, and I think it might be like an optional side quest for Yuffie. But I'm pretty sure he's gonna come back and we fight him.
Because is Yuffie's father dead in this version? Is that I can't remember if that's okay. For some reason, the way he talked about it, it made me feel like he was.
She hates her dad.
She hates her dad. So, but okay, because I was like, what?
Yeah.
Wait, I was like, wait. In the first game, she hates her dad, but I thought she trained under him. This one, it made it seem like he didn't train her, but I can't. I'm. This might have just been me not paying attention to what was
I think both are true. I think she trained under him, and they have like a fractured relationship at this point. And Sonon also trained under her dad and really respects her dad. So it's like their one point of tiny contention in this game, where he'll be like, "Your dad's cool," and she'll say, "Don't say that around me," basically.
Yeah.
But what were you gonna say, Paige? I'm sorry.
No, I think if we're talking about like characters, they did a pretty good job of like having Yuffie be so annoying up top, and then kind of humanizing her by the end. Because like I think I've like finally learned that like if you don't like a character in the beginning of something, you may like them by the end of it, so hang in there. Yeah. Because they have to have an arc, And she goes from like super annoying to less annoying by the end of it. And, I guess it takes Sonon's death for her to kind of like calm down a bit. But I gotta be honest, like Sonon, didn't really care much for him. He was just kind of like just a little placeholder, character development.
Totally.
Yeah, there was nothing really that interesting about him. Like, there was that tiny little flashback at the end to his sister, but I've seen this so many times, and I've seen it done so much better. If we are comparing him to Ellie and Joel, then this is the Japanese Ellie and Joel, where Joel just does a lot more. So yeah.
It's like the reactions when almost like the voice of reason reacts to the like total cartoons in these games, and all they can do, because Cloud does that a lot too, where he's like and it's like, what are you doing? It's like you can't even react to anything. But yeah, Sonon is a bit milquetoast. But David, your point about like he was so good, and me being like, wait a second, I haven't seen him in the regular Final Fantasy VII, and I don't think he's going to be a party member. Something's going to have to happen. Yeah, that goes down. It's funny, the thing with his sister, I think it makes it's like not a bad backstory point or justification for this character's, like how this character acts and this like responsibility he feels. But yeah, we've just, like PJ said, we've seen it before, and I don't think we really get anything else about his sister other than she dies and is killed, and so it's a little thin there. But like overall, I didn't hate him, and I didn't mind him being around at all. But yeah, so that was one point that I wanted to talk about. There's not a ton that I could remember that like felt like it really informed certain things about Remake that maybe we weren't seeing at the time. I do like that she sort of infiltrates Shinra and is seeing like how the sausage is made with like their machines and whatnot, and she fights what's her Scarlet, a tall hot blonde lady who she gets into it with. It is interesting to me in a way to have someone like back infiltrating Shinra, even though this is something you do as Tifa, Cloud, and Barrett in the first game. I don't feel like it fleshed out the world for me or that moment in Midgar, but I didn't mind it as a setting. I don't know if either of you two had thoughts on like this overall mission or anything.
I think, and PJ and I talked about this on the last pod we were on. I think that like two things. One, this is the other trap that I think that like particularly, I mean, I think a lot of storytelling is getting obsessed with this to the detriment of mystery, which is feeling like everything needs to be explained in excruciating detail. And being like, where is Yuffie, and how was Yuffie's 3 weeks prior to her meeting Cloud and the gang directly, how was there things going on about the story that you didn't know about? Like that stuff is all unnecessary to me. Also, like one thing I really enjoy in the original game is how Yuffie is just this weird like literally I think her class is listed as materia hunter or something like that, or like and she is just kind of like comic relief until you get to Wutai and learn about her little backstory. But so there's a part of me that's like, I while I appreciate this, I'm like, this is creating a character arc and character depth that like feels like a hat on a hat a little bit. But I also feel like they're doing a little bit of that, like they're trying to me connect some dots between Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII, and this is off Wikipedia learning what was going on, but Dirge of Cerberus as well. It seems like they're trying to use Yuffie as some of the connective tissue alongside Vincent for getting all of those games into like a cohesive, not even a cohesive timeline, but just like cohesive in terms of like what we care about and what they're all ultimately about.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, they're like tying everything together.
From a Shinra perspective, at least.
Yeah. From what I know, too, I've only heard this as well, as that Nero is like the final boss in Dirge of Cerberus, or he's someone at least that Vincent fights. So, yeah, I'm already, with the timeline, and this is a whole thing with Remake of like, what's going on when? Are we like breaking things from the intended timeline? That's another thing that's like, all right, so is Vincent never going to fight this guy? Is Vincent going to fight the Sonon version of Nero or whatever? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I assume we've just kind of retconned Dirge of Cerberus, because the split in the timeline happens right before Dirge, when Sephiroth goes back into the live stream, and it kind of restarts everything. So I think that even they're just like, let's just get rid of that.
Yeah,
that's really bad.
That's funny. Most things they choose to flesh out in that, they're like, bye-bye.
Yeah, but I mean, they obviously like reintroducing characters from other games and media. So like, Kaz and the Sephiroth children from Advent Children, like that is the boss battle of Remake. When you fight their shadows, their whispers. And then Nero.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just watched Advent Children for the first time Thursday, and I did not put that together.
Yeah, those 3 whispers that you fight at the end, that's them.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. Because it's like the red, the yellow, and like I think maybe a blue or something.
Maybe, yeah.
You fight them like when in this huge battle at the end. Yeah, that's their whispers. And then same thing with Nero, the boss. I think it's great that they're like, okay, cool, like let's like still use these characters, but we're not going to dwell on them. We're just going to let you fight them, and then that's it. Same thing with Weiss. Yeah. He's just like a DLC optional battle for Intergrade. And I think he played a big role in Dirge.
I think he was the final boss in Dirge, wasn't he? Or
maybe he
was. Yeah.
And Nero's his brother. So like I think it's confusing. I even reading the Wikipedia, I was like, huh.
Yeah. I think it's just their way of honoring these characters that they have introduced so that no one gets left behind, but also like these aren't the focus of this new timeline moving forward. And I think that's pretty smart. I think that's good.
Yeah. I feel you there. When it comes to characters too, there's one character as well that like stood out to me and that I wanted to talk about, and that's the Happy Turtle guy. Do you remember this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
he's also from Wu
Dana Carvey.
Yes. It's Dana Carvey. Which honestly, great pull. Final Fantasy VII team. You have a few side missions in this game that you can do. Very few of them. One of which I think is to like beat the one summon that Chadley has for you, because Chadley's back with his VR missions. So there's that you can do. You need to find like the flyers that I think have been like hidden or thrown away or something for the Happy Turtle. You're trying to bring the Happy Turtle guy his 5 flyers as well, and then I think you can buy you can end up buying like items in Fort Condor, like figures from him. And then the other side quest is the Fort Condor missions. And I want to know, did you guys do this at all? Because I ended up, when I first interacted with Fort Condor, which is this sort of, I guess the way I'll describe it is like a tactical mini game that you can interact with, where you have different boards, and all you're really doing is setting down different pieces with different abilities and hoping they beat your opponent's pieces. They basically have AI that's controlling them. When I first interacted with this, because I think it makes you do one, I was like, this sucks, I'm not going to interact with it. And then, folks, I couldn't stop playing it, and I finished the quest. David, did you interact with this at all? Because I know some people who bounced off it.
I bounced off it, but it was a protective measure, because I thought to myself, this is going to be in the next game, and if it's in the next game, then I will sink probably 20 hours into it in that game. And so
goodbye Triple Triad.
Oh, and I hear that there's a new card game, and they say it's as good as Triple Triad.
Ooh.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
Queen's
I've
Blood.
got some mini games that I'm going to be diving into. So yeah, I just was like, I'm trying so hard to, because I didn't play it. I didn't play it originally. So I was playing it like when you texted me like a month ago and was
Yes.
like, hey, play this for the pod. And I was like, and I'm grateful for that. But I was also like, I was so scared that I wasn't going to finish the game that turned out to be 5 hours. But,
Yes.
but I was so scared that I wasn't going to finish the game that I was like, you know what? Play the game, finish it so you can
Sure.
talk to Connor about it.
Yeah, it was truly, this game being so short, it was like the easiest. Because, you know, even though all I really do is ask people to come to play a game or to remember a game they've played to talk about it on a podcast, it still is that's still like asking someone to undertake a little bit of a journey. So when this is like the shortest game we've ever played for this series, and so it put a little weight off my shoulders just slightly. I was like, okay, I've asked people to play way longer crap. This is okay.
Yeah.
PJ, did you do the Fort Condor minigame?
I did. I played it a little bit, but and I was down to like keep playing it, but I never really encountered all the opportunities to challenge people. It just never really came up in my playthrough. And like I said, I've tried to go back and platinum
Yes.
INTERmission, which I found is really challenging because you have to beat it on hard, and
so you
you
gotta go
have
back.
to level up in normal mode. So you have to play it like multiple times, and I think after a while I just kind of got sick of the two levels. So yeah, that was going to be my plan going in. It seemed fun, but just like how the original Fort Condor mission was very hands-off and you just kind of like lay things out, like it wasn't really as engaging for me, so I didn't really feel like I missed much not playing it. But I am excited for Queen's Blood. And I'm not even really into like card games, but like, man, if there's going to be a ton of Easter eggs in Queen's Blood coming up, like different cards that you get, I'm down for it.
Yeah. Were you gonna say something?
And it seems like they're. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no! Oh, I don't even remember.
Sorry.
Well, it seems like they're going to take that art style, that how do you pronounce it? Chibi art style?
I guess so, yeah.
And I don't spoil it because like I only saw like a glimpse of it, but it seems like they're bringing back the original chibi art style for another mini game in Rebirth.
Oh yes, yes.
Which looks really cool. I don't know what it is. I accidentally spoiled myself, but it'll be cool to see that art style again come back.
You know what? That's what I was going to say, is that Fort Condor and actually the Turtle Paradise flyers are like two of the most missable side quest / mini games in the original game. Like with Fort Condor, there's one that you have to do, I think, later on, and you would have no idea doing that you were technically supposed to be doing this, throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you mean in the original?
The original game. So I feel like it's spiritually correct to do a little bit of Fort Condor and then be like, okay, and just
totally, to like dip your toe in.
Yeah,
this is.
I wonder if that's going to be in Rebirth.
I feel like it's got to be. Like, why would they build that? But maybe not.
Yeah,
because in the original, like you can literally, they go, will you help us? You can go no, and then leave.
Not interested.
And it's funny because
it is in that map.
Yeah, this is like you're playing like a sort of board game essentially, where that in the game you're actually defending Fort Condor, correct?
No, but it's like it's like an auto battler the same way. Like you place units down and then they just kind of like walk in a line until they encounter things.
Okay, cool.
So I've definitely.
But you are actually fighting Shinra soldiers. Yes.
Oh yeah. It's not. I'm sorry. Yes, it's not a game. The way the game is played is
And you know,
is a
I'm
game,
always saying
but-
that life
Yeah.
is not a game, folks. Don't play life like a game. Fort Condor. A few of the things that really stuck out to me about this, the mini game, was that I would agree. I don't think it's that engaging, but it was addicting to me once I got in, because there's a big rock paper scissors element where there's like 3 types of units you can have. They're sword, shield, or ranged, and they all, you know, eat each other's lunch in a certain way. And so it was fun to like have a little strategy of looking at your opponent's team and building your team based on that. Certain boards that you choose allow you to have either a different number of units, or let you use certain magic spells that are very limited during your play, and also get your ATB meter in Fort Condor up so you can actually put a new unit on the board. And it was, I almost quit it after a while because it was really hard. I was finding it really challenging. And so, but then I ended up pushing through, and like, because I didn't realize you could change boards for a while. And so once I was able to do that, I was like, oh, it was fun to find strategies that worked for me with specific units. And I ended up having a lot of fun in it, but it was hard. Like, and just so you two know, Chadley, there's like a secret, like, master Fort Condor player, and it ends up being Chadley at the very end, which it's an okay payoff to me. I mean, I wish it would have been someone else, but I like the payoff in the sense that like almost everyone you encounter for these Fort Condor mini games are characters from Remake. You play against Roche, who comes back. You play Jesse. You play a Wedge. And so I ended up like, that is the thing about this game that actually stood out the most to me. Not that it was like spectacular, but that separated it from Remake the most. Because Remake has a couple mini games, like there's like a squat contest and some stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't remember interacting with anything this like unrelated to the game in Remake.
I will also say that one thing that reminds me of, not to make everything about Final Fantasy VIII, but in Final Fantasy
Here he
VIII,
goes.
there's this side quest where it turns out that at your high school there is the card game, which is throughout the whole game, but there's this card club, and you have to like go through the ranks and play all these characters that you didn't know were into cards are suddenly like, oh yeah, actually I'm in this card club and I'm very high up in it. And I won't spoil who the head of the card club is, but it's
I bet it's Chadley.
It's Chadley. But it is fun. Like I love a mini game where it turns out that like all your homies are like are like the opponents, and like you're not just like finding random people. It's like you look around and you suddenly find out that actually Barrett is the most avid Fort Condor player of them all, and then you have to play him.
Yeah, there's something fun about that, where as opposed to being some faceless NPC wearing a flannel in this world, it is people that we know. Yeah, I think, just like there's not too much more I have to say about Intermission just as a game overall, other than I really ended up enjoying it. I think what I ended up enjoying most was being back in that FF7 remake rhythm of I love the combat system so much. Like I find so much joy in playing certain ways and like really mastering my like modes of building up your ATB meter to use specific attacks. I think this game is gorgeous too, as this whole series has been. But yeah, my big takeaway at the end of it was like, oh, I liked this, I think, because I love Remake. And if you want like a mini version of that game, this isn't going to totally do it for you, because if you like swinging a big sword around, you're just not doing that in this version. But I felt like it was like the perfect appetizer for me getting back into Remake and being ready for Rebirth. Do you two is there like an element of this game that we haven't talked about that you two want to mention at all?
So there were I liked Yuffie's character being treated like as a little sister to everybody.
Yeah.
Like in that scene where like the gang members
are
like, oh yeah, look at her.
Don Corneo's guys.
Real good. Yeah, and then it turns out they were talking about like the NPC behind Yuffie, and she gets super jealous because she was so into being catcalled in that moment because it made her feel more like a woman. And then also later when she does that incredible looking introduction when she takes off the mogul outfit and she like introduces herself like almost like a Power Rangers introduction. It looks so cool, and it was like high fidelity definition looking visuals on screen, and then the two soldiers that she was saying it to had already turned around and walked away.
Yes, yeah.
So it was like it was really funny. I loved all the levity that they brought into it. She ended up being like pretty lovable because no one takes her seriously, and if they bring that into Rebirth, like. Man, the thing I'm most excited about in Rebirth, besides the open world and just continuing the story, is going to be just the interactions with all the characters. Yeah. Because that's what made, going back to Last of Us, the story isn't incredible. It's the interaction between the two characters and the world around them. And I think it's going to be the same thing with Rebirth. I think it's just going to be one of those like super funny laugh out loud games where like Red 13 is going to say something out of pocket. Barrett's going to react to it. Cloud's going to tell them to shut up. Even like in the demo where like Cloud goes through Tifa's closet, to like get the orthopedic underwear, and they both go, asshole. Like it's just so cute and funny and very on brand for their characters. And I think INTERmission was great at like introducing that. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna to piggyback on that and say that, that's really how it felt in the game, right? Is like that you do all of Midgar and then you get out of Midgar, and that's when it feels like you start like really experiencing the banter with these characters. And like the game weirdly like lightens up once they get out of Midgar.
You get like a road trip element to it.
Yeah.
Whereas like Midgar feels like one big heist sort of. So and there's less time for that and more time for just like, hey, are we gonna get blown up by something right now? Yeah, PJ, you make a lot of great points. Yeah, she does like Yuffie like. She is definitely she's intentionally obnoxious in this game, but she grew on me too big time, and like she just feels like, I think because she is sweet. Generally, she's nice even though she's obnoxious and will poke at people. I do like her overall. David, is there anything about this game we haven't mentioned that you wanted to touch on yet?
No, just thinking about like Yuffie's likability and how in the original game to recruit her you have to like first of all she does that like weird little like punch thing at everybody, but then to recruit her you have to basically like ignore her.
That's such a funny look at like what makes people tick. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's good. Well, folks, as we sort of head out, I'm going to just be looking for like final thoughts on this thing. I've kind of given mine already, which is like as far as a bridge from Remake to Rebirth and filling in some of these gaps. I just love this experience as an appetizer, and it in a vacuum, I don't know how I feel about it, but thankfully I don't have to look at it in a vacuum. I really enjoyed it, and it made me excited for PJ hit the nail on the head for me is like the interactions to come with more characters that we're adding to this group. Characters that I also love from my limited time with 7, but that you two are going to appreciate a lot more. Overall, this was a really fun appetizer for me. PJ, closing thoughts for you on this DLC in general?
Yeah, I think the name is a great way of telling the audience, yes, this is an intermission between Remake and Rebirth. This is basically a tech demo for us. We introduced some story elements and character development, but this was them kind of workshopping their way to getting to what we're going to land on in Rebirth. We're going to have more diverse combat systems. We're going to like show even more backstory to new characters that they're going to introduce. I just love the development philosophy that game makers have, where like, hey, if we're going to like experiment with like how to expand upon this system that we created, then let's make it a DLC and let's introduce some new story elements through that. And it just really feels like they're truly earning their way to like one of the best games ever when Rebirth comes out. So yeah, just like you said, it's a great appetizer for what's to come, and I'm so hyped. I'm so excited.
Yeah. David, any closing thoughts for you?
I mean, PJ, you really took the words out of my mouth. To me, what this is Square playing with the formula that they had and testing out some mechanics. And I wish game developers were always doing it. I mean, I think the big example is Tears of the Kingdom, right? Is, you have a game, your base game, and rather than, rebuilding everything from the ground up, iterating on it and discovering, what the other angles are and what the other systems are that can make this even more fulfilling. And I was really glad that they do it. I hope that that's something that continues to happen. And it just did a really good job of getting me excited for this coming week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, playing this game, I think, is actually what got me. Like, now I know the layout of Sector 7 in my head. For some reason, when I played Remake, I didn't quite. I don't know if you guys are in spaces in video games. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I know where everything is, like the back of my hand. I don't need to look at the map. That happened to me playing this game, not Remake, for some reason, which has served me well getting back into Remake. I'm like, when in Sector 7, I know, where the apartments are versus the Happy Turtle guy and whatnot. But anyway, thank you two so much for joining me for this discussion on Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission, the Yuffie DLC, which I did have to, leading up to this, be like, wait, is it Intermission? Is it Intergrade? It's Intermission.
Yeah.
Of course, they had to name the PS5 version something confusing. Anyway, this has been so much fun. Thank you two for joining me. On our way out, if you have any plugs, feel free to shout some stuff out. David, I'll start with you. Anything you want people to know about or places you'd like to be found?
No.
Look at that. Well, buddy, I'll be in touch.
You can find me playing this game as soon as Best Buy delivers it to me.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll be in touch to see what you think. PJ, how about yourself?
If you check out the new season of The Rookie, episode 1, you can, like, I'm there in it.
Really?
I don't say anything, but you can see me on it. That's pretty funny.
Okay, look at that.
It's me and what's that guy's name? Nathan something. I forgot his name.
Fillion.
And then
Nathan Fillion, I think.
Yeah.
I almost said
like,
Filton. I was like, that's not right.
I'm briefly on camera. Actually, I'm in it for like 6 minutes with Nathan Fillion.
Whoa.
And then what else? Last Herald Night for Lohan is coming up. Not tomorrow, but next Monday. So yeah, come check out our last show. And then come to One Big Jam every Sunday at 5:30 at UCB Franklin. We always have special guests. And then check out the Shared Experience Studio. It's the school I teach improv at. And we also have a show every Wednesday night at Lyric Hyperion. So, I don't know. All that stuff you can find out on my Instagram. at PEEJ McCormick, Peej McCormick. PJ McCormick was taken.
A shame, but Peej is pretty great. I'll put all links to all that in the show notes. And yeah, PJ, dude, I know we talked about it the other day, I think after our previous show, but one more, pal, and we'll see what the future holds for us.
We'll see.
Feels like we were just
I'm rooting
there.
for you.
We'll be on the same night too. Monday, March 4th. If you're listening to this and you want to come out to see, we're in different shows. One of us is in 7, one of us is in 8:30. But if you want to see some great teams do their last show of the season at least, there'll be a link in the show notes.
Fun energy.
I'll go ahead and I'll close this out with some plugs of my own. The show art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. You can find him and his other great work on Instagram at Glenn with 2 N's .JAY. You can find the show all over social media at Call Me By Your Game or Call Me By Your Game Pod, wherever. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Truly, if you're listening out there and you're on TikTok, you should follow us. I post multiple TikToks a week at this point. Highlights from the podcast. There will be highlights from this one in the future as well. So give us a follow there if you don't already. The network, though, if you're listening to this, as it comes out on Patreon, thank you so much to all of our Engineer Toad supporters. This is one of your bonus releases that you get every month from me. And thank you. If you have any thoughts on this DLC, hit us up in the Discord, comment on the post on Patreon. But all that being said, thank you so much for supporting us. And if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching as well. You can like the video, subscribe to the channel, or if you're interested in getting this in an audio-only format, that's available for all of our $10 Engineer Toad supporters on Patreon. But we also have, stuff for as little as $1 a month you can subscribe. And what that gets you is our back catalog of Super NPCs episode series, 180 of those, plus the right to vote in our Games Club election, which, David, I know you know we're just wrapping up our Mass Effect series, but did you know a new election is coming up just in a few days?
I was not aware.
Well, we haven't officially posted the nominees, but our next Games Club election is going to run from this Friday, March 1st through March 8th, so a week. So our patrons will get to vote between 5 first-person shooter adventures. The nominees are BioShock, the original BioShock, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. You can guess who nominated that one. I
can.
Cough, cough, the COD King. We also have Dishonored, Doom Eternal, and what was the other one that's nominated? Oh, Titanfall 2. So a pretty sick list of first-person adventure shooters. If you want to support us at any tier, folks, $1 and up, you can vote on what we play for an entire quarter and do a series on.
That's basically voting on what podcasts you want to listen to.
It truly is.
That's real power.
Yeah, if you want to help us dictate what we do for literally a fourth of the year, literally hop aboard at $1 at the $1 tier, and you can do that. Anyway. You can follow me on social media. I'm all over the place. Check me out on Twitch, too, where I stream video games at twitch.tv/consiscool69. But that'll do it for this episode of the Call Me By Your Game co-op series. We will see you on the next one.